Hey guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about my January wrap up. So yes, I am in the same clothes as the last video, which was my February releases, because I am pre-filming on the same day and I couldn't be bothered to get changed, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to take my hat off and show everyone the bad hair day that I am having, and this is it. So yeah, sorry about that guys. So today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in January. So yeah, this is actually quite depressing because for last year I set my Goodreads reading challenge for 100 books. I surpassed that and I read 119. So to challenge myself for 2018, I decided to set my reading challenge for 150 books, which is harder than I thought it would be because I have read 12 books this month and Goodreads is still saying that I am one book behind schedule, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, how many books do I need to read to stay on schedule? It's like the first month of 2018 and I'm already losing. I mean, really? Really? Just no words. I figured out if I read 11 books every month, that's 132 books, which is not my Goodreads goal. So really I have to read about, what, 14 books a month? I don't know, I failed maths, let me just work this out please. 13 times 12 is 156. Okay, so really I need to read 13 books a month, which takes it to 156 books in order to reach my Goodreads goal at the end of the year. Oh my god, 13 books a month. How is that possible? Like literally this month I have just been reading short books so I can get to like on schedule. So I've been reading poetry and graphic novels. I can't read poetry and graphic novels the whole way through the year to stay on track. I have like 500-page books I need to read, so how is this going to be possible? But enough ranting because this is a 4-minute intro. We need to cut this down. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get into my January wrap up. So the first book that I read in the month of January is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and this was for the Gothic module at university, which is why it is tabbed, and this is the Folio Society edition, so it's hardcover and it has pictures in it, which is amazing. This was a very good book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I didn't give it 5 because the beginning was a little bit slow, but apart from that this was absolutely fascinating. Rebecca is about this girl and we have no idea who her name is. Like, her name is not revealed at any point during the whole novel, and she meets Maxime de Winter, falls in love with him, they get married, and then it's about kind of her paranoia of not being able to live up to the previous Mrs. de Winter, whose name is Rebecca. So our narrator feels like she can't live up to the ex-wife and that she's not good enough, and then the paranoia sets in. She's not actually crazy, like her anxiety is playing up and she generally suffers from mental health, like, you know, really bad paranoia, and I felt so sorry for her because I knew exactly what she was going through because I've been there, and paranoia sets in and anxiety just makes it worse, and then you become depressed and it's just a huge snowballing effect. I could really relate to a nameless narrator, and this was just a really creepy yet amazingly written book, and I can see why everybody loves it because just the way Daphne du Maurier writes this story is just completely captured my attention, and I was just so glad that I got to write a 3,000 word essay partly on this book. I get my results back today guys and I'm very scared. I get them back in like an hour, so if you follow me on Twitter, keep your eyes open for upsetting tweets because I probably will be crying myself to sleep tonight. Yay. But if they're happy to eat, you know I've done well, so it's all good. But anyway, back to the January wrap-up. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I do have a more detailed review for this book, so I will leave it in the description box below. The second book that I read in Jan was Shadow House No Way Out by Dan Pawlowski. This is the third and final book in the Shadow House trilogy. Look at this. What? See, it's one of those fancy covers, and inside it has pictures and the pages are grey, and that makes me so happy. But basically this is a middle grade thriller, horror, mystery kind of novel, and it's one of those books where I realised all age ranges can read them. So middle grade children can read them because they're not too scary, yet the language is quite simplistic. Young adult readers can obviously read it because, you know, it's got that thriller aspect that young adult readers could like, and then adult readers can read it because it's just got everything about, like, everything that you could want in a thriller novel. It's just absolutely amazing, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I would give the overall trilogy a 4 out of 5 stars as well. I loved the characters, I loved the plot, I love how creepy it is because I get scared very, very easily. 4 out of 5 stars for this book. This was a really great finale of the trilogy, and I feel like Dan Pawlowski's writing is just so interesting. The way that he can write a thriller book that just feels accessible to all ages. I just think that's an incredible feat to do. So I definitely recommend the Shadow House trilogy if you are looking for an amazing thriller to get into. The third book I do obviously own because I read it, but it's in an anthology. But that is the Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was a brilliant short story. Again, I had to read this for the Gothic module at university, but I also had to read it for my gender, sex and culture module at university, and this was an amazing short story. Again, it's about a woman. She's recovering from, I feel like it's kind of like a postpartum depression or like postnatal depression. She's just given birth to a child, and she obviously is feeling very depressed, and her husband keeps calling it a nervous disposition. And her husband basically just like locks her in a room with disgusting yellow wallpaper, and she feels like she's kind of going insane, and you follow her as she's kind of making this journey. The only reason I didn't give it a 5 stars is because the ending was very, very ambiguous and very strange. It's like different websites are saying different things. So basically at the end of the novel it says that the husband faints because of what he's witnessing his wife doing, and websites are saying, oh, the husband just faints. But then other websites are saying that the husband fainting means that he's turned into a woman. And I was like, what? I don't understand. What is this? Like, what's going on? Does he just faint? Is he turning into a woman? What's going on? I don't get it. So that's the reason why I gave this a 4.5 instead of 5. The fourth book that I read this month was Fireblood by Ellie Blake. This is the second book in the Frostblood trilogy, and this was just such a crazy book. I do have a review for Frostblood and Fireblood. Again, I will leave those in the description box below. I think that Fireblood was actually better than Frostblood. I gave Fireblood a 4 stars, and I gave Frostblood a 4 stars. If we're going to get down to like the nitty gritty ratings, I'd give this a like 4.25 out of 5, because I think this one was better because the characters had their foundations built up. We knew who the characters were, we knew what the magic was like in the book, we knew what the world was like. So Ellie Blake didn't have to really go into that much description about the book, about the world, and we could just get on with the action. In this book we follow Ruby as she goes to Sudesia, which is the fire part of the world that she lives in, and she meets the Queen of Sudesia. And I just found this book magnificent. It was well written, much more concise throughout the whole book as well. There is a love triangle, but don't roll your eyes if you don't like love triangles. This one is actually pretty sweet and cute. It is really, really good. I definitely recommend this series. It's kind of like very tropey, So there's a lot of stereotypical YA fantasy elements in this series, but Ellie Blake does it really, really well, and I do list those tropes in my review of the books, so you can see what those are and you can see if this book is for you. But I really do recommend it if you are maybe starting out in YA fantasy. This is a very good kind of starting point to start at. Wow, that was like a really bad sentence, but you get my drift. It's a good book to start at if you're getting into YA fantasy, so there we go. That made sense that time. The next book that I read is a poetry book, and that is The Princess Saves Herself in this one by Amanda Lovelace, and this is the first book in a Women Are Some Kind of Magic series, and it's a poetry collection. It's a feminist poetry collection. The green tabs are poems that I really, really like. Again, I have a review for this poetry collection on my blog. I tabbed all the poems that I like, and there is actually quite a few. I gave The Princess Saves Herself in this one 3 out of 5 stars. I prefer kind of like the traditional sense of poetry. I prefer it to rhyme, I guess. So this kind of poetry I don't think is for me, but like I said before, I can still appreciate how much work, effort and heart has gone into these poems. Obviously I did relate to a lot because of the sticky tabs, but it's like, I don't know how to describe it. I just prefer the traditional poetry. That's the best way I can say it. I prefer the traditional sense of poetry than the contemporary one, but I did still really enjoy it. I did give it a 3 out of 5, so it doesn't mean that it's terrible, doesn't mean that it's absolutely fantastic and it blew my socks off. It just means that it was an enjoyable read, and I do have a review for it, so I will leave that in the description box below. After this one, I read Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I also gave this 3 out of 5 stars. This is, again, a modern contemporary poetry collection. This type of poetry isn't exactly for me, but I can appreciate how much work has gone into it. There we go, disclaimer. Obviously, again, there were poems that I really enjoyed because there are loads of pink tabs. Milk and Honey is very much more sexual than The Princess, so I do say that Milk and Honey is for mature readers only, because it is very, very sexual and it deals with a lot of difficult issues. But no, Milk and Honey is much more sexual. It's still a very enjoyable read, although I do think I prefer The Princess to Milk and Honey. I haven't read The Sun and Her Flowers yet, which is the second poetry collection that Rupi Kaur has read, but I've heard that it's less sexual. Not that I have anything against sexual poetry, of course I don't, it's just not really for me. So I am excited to get round to The Sun and Her Flowers to see what that one's like, but this is the next book that I read in January. The next book I read in January, I don't actually have a physical copy for. I was sent a e-publication by the author, and that is Rafferty Lincoln Loves, and this is by Emily Williams, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Emily Williams is the author of Letters to Eloise, and that was one of my favourite books that I read in 2017. When Emily emailed me and she asked if I wanted to read her new and upcoming contemporary novel that's coming out on the 14th of February, of course I said yes. And I read it in a few days and I really, really did enjoy it. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't as good as Letters to Eloise, but it was still really, really good. And all the money from the sales of Rafferty Lincoln Loves goes to the British Thoroughbred charity, so that's always a good thing as well. But no, Rafferty Lincoln Loves is about these group of kids in high school, and they find a horse that has gone missing, or a horse that's lost, and it's about these kids coming together to look after this horse. If you're not a big fan of horses, don't worry. This book, like, its central kind of focus isn't on the horse. It's about what these kids go through in school, at home, their friendships with each other, and what they go through in life. But the horse is like the thing that kind of links these kids together. It's a brilliant story to check out. I really did enjoy it, and I'm not just saying that because Emily sent me the book. I just love her as an author, and she writes really, really good stories, and Rafferty Lincoln Loves was one of those stories. I do have a review for Rafferty Lincoln Loves is going live on my blog on the 7th of February, a week before the release date. Definitely check that out when it goes live. And the next book that I read in January was Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is the first book in the Arc of Scythe series. I don't really know how many books are going to be. I know the second book, Thunderhead, is out at the moment. I don't know if that's the final one or whether there's going to be more. I gave Scythe 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was an amazing, amazing book. So this book is about a world where death has been conquered. So no one dies, there's no poverty or anything. All of the world's problems have been conquered. So the only way for the population to be controlled is to kill them. So there is these group of people called Scythes, and they are tasked to keep the population down. They have to kill so many people a year, and they choose who they want to kill, but there's rules for them to follow. So they can't, I don't know, kill loads of females, they can't kill loads of males. There's got to be like an equal proportion to who they kill. And it's about these two young, well, I'll say two young kids, they're not kind of kids, they're like 17 or something, I don't know, but they're around that age, about these two teenagers, and they become a Scythe's apprentice, and it's about them learning how to become a Scythe. And there's just, it's just amazing. There's blood and there's gore, there is just competitions and politics, and it is absolutely amazing. I love it so much. The only thing that let this book down, and the reason why I didn't give it 5 stars, is because there's like a weird romance element to it that's not really romance, but it's insinuated as romance. And I didn't get why Neil Shusterman thought to put it in, because it just works so much better if it was just not mentioned at all. But this is a very, very good book, and I have already ordered the second one in the series, so that's going to come in the next couple of days, and I can't wait to get around to that one. But this is fab, and I do have a review for this as well, so again I will link that in the description box below. Then we get on to the graphic novels. So these are the graphic novels that I read in January. I read Saga Volume 5, Saga Volume 6, and Saga Volume 7. And I am currently reading Saga Volume 8. So I don't know whether I'll finish that today or whether it'll be in like my February wrap up, I'm not sure. I read the 3 Saga books in January, so I gave number 5 4 stars, and I gave 6 and 7 5 stars, because in these two the story really picks up, and it's fast paced and emotional, and the adventures are amazing. Again, this series is for mature readers. It's got a lot of sex and violence and explicit language, so definitely for mature readers. But these graphic novels are just brilliant, and is one of the best series that I have ever come across, and that's including like book series, TV series, anything. It is fantastic. It's a sci-fi fantasy series about these 2 adults called Marco and Alana, and they're together and they're in the middle of the war, and there's assassins after them, and they have a child, and it's just about this family just dealing with loads of crap that they have to deal with. And it's just absolutely amazing, and if you love graphic novels, I definitely suggest that you check Saga out, because it is fantastic, and I can't wait to finish reading Volume 8. But then that means I have to wait another year till Volume 9 comes out, and I don't want to wait a year for the next one to come out, but it's gonna have to happen. So yeah, definitely check out the Saga series. And the last book that I read in January is The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one by Amanda Lovelace, and this is the second book in the Women Are Some Kind of Magic series. So obviously I read The Princess Saves Herself in this one, and then it was actually this morning I read The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, and I gave this book, well, this poetry collection, sorry, a 4 out of 5 stars. So I did think it was better than The Princess Saves Herself. The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one was very more political, which kind of is the reason why I gave it a higher rating, because I enjoy politics and I enjoy reading about it, and you know, this had some poems about the Women's March and Hillary Clinton, and it was just very much more enjoyable. And even though there probably wasn't as many poems that I could relate to, it was a definitely more enjoyable read, and it was just fantastic. And I can see the direction that Amanda Lovelace is going in with her poetry. Again, it is feminism poetry, and the same as The Princess. The reason why I didn't give this a 5 out of 5 stars is because this kind of modern contemporary poetry isn't really my favourite. I do prefer poems that rhyme and have like a set structure, but I can still appreciate how much hard work and effort and heart has gone into this type of poetry, and I did enjoy it. I did really enjoy it, so I can't wait to read the 3rd book, which is, I think it's called The Mermaid Doesn't Lose Her Voice in this one, so which is very interesting, and I can't wait to get around to that one when that comes out next year. But no, those are the 12 books that I read in January. Sorry if this video is really long. I did have a lot to say about each of them, but I do have reviews for nearly all of these books on my blog, so I will link the reviews in the description box below. What books did you read in January? Let me know in the comments box below, and I would love to check them out. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you've got any comments, questions or feedback, just leave those in the comments box below as well. I do post videos on Tuesdays and Fridays, and yes, I am starting my readathon videos again, and the first readathon video will be going up on the 5th of February, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you want notifications for when any videos are going to be posted, just click on the bell icon below and you will receive notifications. So yeah, that is everything that I have to say for my January wrap-up video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video, which is my January book haul. Bye!